will have the opportunity to interview our three guests that we have with us today. They are all districts where I am currently serving as the CDS. Y'all probably heard our mission, and we love to partner with these three districts because they really are making their neighborhood public schools the #1 choice for families. So our first guest that we have with us today is Dr. Dan Dukes. If you want to give a little wave to everyone. Dr. Dan Dukes is the Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction in Abilene ISD, and he is currently serving as the project lead for the implementation of best practices on 5 of their elementary campuses. Here are the demographics from Abilene ISD, just to let y'all know a little bit about their district. There are about 16,500 students. You can see that they are a diverse district with a high population that is at risk that they serve. We also have with us today Dr. Tamika Brown, if you want to give everyone a little wave. Dr. Brown is the Chief Academic Officer for El Paso ISD. And Dr. Brown has been serving as a project lead really alongside Charlotte Dickerson in the district for the implementation of the active learning framework in El Paso ISD over the past 4 years. Here is a district snapshot of El Paso's ISD's demographics. You can see their student population is about 58,000, and they are also serving a high population of economically disadvantaged students. And you can see that their demographics listed there for their student population. We also have with us Kevin Holliday, who is the Director of Instructional Technology from Spring ISD. Kevin, if you want to give everyone a little wave so they can see who you are. Kevin has served as the project lead for the Math Innovation Zone grant. They have 4 campuses that are implementing the Spring Empowered Learning Framework and blended learning on those 4 MIS campuses, as well as a couple of their specialty middle school campuses. So excited to have Spring with us here today. Their student population is about 36,000. Y'all can see that they are diverse as well and serving a high population of economically disadvantaged students. So we are going to just go right into our interview today with these 3 districts. If you have any need to knows or any questions that you would like for them to address, if you will just put those in the chat, and Sheridan and I will monitor that. And if those don't get addressed through the interview questions that we have, we will definitely make sure that we ask those along the way or at the end of the interview session. So the first question that I would like to ask our panel who is here with us today, and I'd really love for all 3 districts to share since y'all all have different contexts, but before moving to virtual coaching this spring, what did coaching look like in your district? And anyone of y'all can start.
Okay, well, I'll jump in there. We have done coaching this past year with our 5 campuses that received an F. Well, actually 4 received an F rating, and so we were going through the Effective Schools Framework process and found that coaching was very much aligned to the Effective Schools Framework process. We had 1 campus receive a D out of 61, and so we added them together with this, to make a cohort of 5 and decided to launch the coaching process. And so ours was sort of out of necessity in terms of we had to figure out something very quickly. I was brand new in the job and was fortunate enough to be able to be introduced to Engage to Learn. And so it became an integral part of our school improvement process in Abilene.
Thanks, Dan. Dr. Brown or Kevin, would y'all like to speak to coaching in your district prior to virtual coaching?
Sure. This is Tamika Brown, and we've had coaching now for this is the 5th year. And we had responsible rollout where all of our campuses have been like assigned a cohort based on their feeder patterns, and every teacher leader, principals have been coached and trained in our framework, the active learning framework. And to date, before this whole need to address the pandemic, with which our needs change, and all of our needs have changed across the state and the nation. We were just focusing on coaching those in the cohort, but now we have kind of made a transition, and coaching is now available to all teachers, regardless of whether or not they were in a cohort, because we realize the value of coaching.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So in Spring ISD, we were very fortunate to receive the Math Innovation Zones grant, which affected 4 of our schools with math instructions, grade 1, 3, and 6. And so we were also fortunate to have Engage to Learn on as support with rolling out our new learning framework. And so what training looked like, or coaching looked like in our district is we have an Engage to Learn coach assigned at both or at all of our campuses, supporting teachers and supporting our coaches, as well as supporting our school leaders. And so the Engage to Learn coaches partner with our district coaches, and they shadow one another as they work to develop our teachers. And also our campus principals are fortunate to have a coach as well to support them with our new framework. And so that's pretty much where we are now. It's been a phenomenal experience as we launch our new learning framework based on all of the best practices. So that's where we were prior to the virtual coaching.
Great. Thank you so much, Tamika and Kevin. And Dan, for sharing what it looks like in your district. And while you'll notice that all 3 of these implementations and what they were doing with coaching was slightly different, the one common factor in all of these districts and in every district that we work is that coaching was using our eGrow coaching process, whether it was to coach teachers, or leaders or instructional coaches. The Engage to Learn coaches use this model, as well as the coaches within the district. So the next question that I would like to ask all 3 of you is, what factors were considered in making the decision to move forward with virtual coaching?
Well, for us in El Paso, this pandemic has really caused us to think differently about our work. And the good news is it has presented a challenge that our teachers have been so open to jumping right into. But that does not mean they were equipped with the tools and the skills to do it well. And so we knew that partnering with Engage to Learn and providing this virtual coaching would be key in helping all of our teachers, not just those that were a part of the cohort, but all of our teachers make this transition. And it has gone significantly well, just helping our teachers to navigate teaching in a virtual learning environment. We're a 1-to-1 district, 6 through 12, and we spent the first few weeks deploying almost 10,000 devices to our elementary students and families. And so, we really needed our teachers to understand how to not only provide quality learning experiences, but how to facilitate teaching in a virtual environment, because they were used to the brick and mortar. And so just having this virtual coaching would ensure that they were being asked the right questions to make sure they were doing the right things for their students and for their families.
Well, and Tamika, what I love about, one of the things that you said is, y'all made the virtual coaching open to every single campus in your district, because prior to COVID-19, I think Engage to Learn had been on about 46 of y'all's campuses. And I love the forward thinking for y'all to say it's not just the 6 campuses that need the support for virtual learning, but it's all 80 plus campuses that we have in the district.
Yep, absolutely.
For us in Abilene, I would say that we made the decision because we had such positive momentum behind the start of our coaching, the in-person coaching that was happening prior to COVID-19. And it wasn't, when you do get a good momentum behind something as significant as what Engaged to Learn is aiming to do for our district, we just didn't want to slow that process down any. And so we really focused a lot of our coaching on really trying to, we didn't put ours as much into the virtual learning as much as we just want to keep this conversation going about what next year is going to look like when you get those kids back in front of you. And certainly a lot has changed since then because we still don't even know what the fall is going to look like. But it was just our teachers have built relationships with their coaches. The coaches, I know our principals get attached to the coaches that were assigned to their campus and just wanted to keep the conversation going. And so I think it's been very beneficial, and we just don't want to lose any ground as we look to the summer and then into the fall, because we're going to be rolling out instructional coaching district-wide next year as well.
And Dan, I really appreciate what you're saying about that because of y'all's great communication that y'all had up front about coaching. Really, everyone that was being coached in Abilene had such a growth mindset, and they were just eager to continue to grow. And you really setting that expectation for them that, hey, we're going to take what we learned this spring, and we're going to make sure that we can use that learning in order to make changes when we go back in the fall. And I think teachers really took that message to heart, and they really wanted to continue to learn this spring so that they would be prepared, whether it's face-to-face or virtual next year.
Right. I agree with that. I haven't had one single complaint from a teacher saying that we shouldn't be coaching during this time. And so that's kind of been nice to see that they're still engaging, and just we're on pause in terms of the face-to-face learning, but we're confident, and they know we'll return to it one day, and they want to be as strong as possible when they do return.
Kevin, would you like to share?
Absolutely. And so definitely in our district, with the pandemic, definitely everyone's been pushed out of their comfort zone. And so echoing pretty much what's been said, we considered basically we didn't want to lose any traction. We experienced such great growths and strides with blended learning at our four blended campuses. And again, when we first launched that initiative, again, something that was not very comfortable for our teachers and our principals, but they jumped in with both feet, and we've had positive experiences. And so with the onset of where we are now, with not being able to have the face-to-face interactions, definitely virtual was really a non-negotiable in order to keep the traction moving so that we don't lose ground.
Yep, I agree with what you said, Kevin. And with y'all rolling out project-based learning units, and I know that you'll talk about that in a little bit, and then just being able to still provide support to teachers and your instructional coaches for how they, implement project-based learning units, virtually. I think that coaching definitely gave them the extra support that they needed. So appreciate y'all's forward thinking to really make virtual, learning engaging for kids by doing that. All right, so next question is, what systems did you have in place that allowed you to make that transition from face-to-face to virtual coaching so seamlessly?
I'll jump in. So one of the things that was extremely important in our district is to make sure that we had a good system of communication from start basically to where we are right now. With being awarded the MIDS grant, making sure that we communicate with all stakeholders from the very top, the superintendent, all the way down to the campuses of, what going to be involved with the MIDs, the direction of having our new empowered learning model, and also communicating with teachers as to all of the different professional developments that will be taking place throughout the year to support with blended learning, making sure that we communicate with our coaches. For me in our district, the coaches have been just a lifeline with making sure that the information trickles down to our campuses. And so I really wanted to make sure that, communication always flows from the top down, but I wanted to also make sure that our coaches were involved with 100% of everything, because they are the lifeline between what starts at the top and what actually take place within the classrooms. So again, it was really more or less about making sure we had a good system of communication. Now, since we're with the pandemic, we've really gone to a centralized support system. So as we began to move towards virtual coaching, making sure that, we have communication coming from central office to campuses, letting them know that, hey, this is what's coming. We were doing the face-to-face type coaching, but since we're unable to do that, expect that we're going to move to the virtual model. Expect to hear from your coaches as we move forward.
That's
For
the
us,
way.
and go ahead.
I was just going to say that's the way it was for us as well. We communicated very early on that coaching would continue. And I think that helped set the stage. And of course, at every, as the weeks went by, we didn't know what the next week held. And so we used the system that I believe we went with the same schedule. They were just doing it virtually. So we didn't even alter the order in which the teachers went. But they were able to, our principals were just very instrumental in making sure that it occurred and making sure that the teachers knew the expectation. And so I think but again, I think it goes back to the relationship. I think our teachers really valued the relationship that they have with the coaches. And so it wasn't an unknown. I think it would be hard to try to start coaching right now without a face-to-face piece starting it off. But it is certainly something that we wanted to continue. And because our teachers really gain that insight from the coaches, because it's such a non-threatening way to just have that person in your corner who's helping you get better. And because we were projecting it to the fall, I think our teachers want to get as much, PD in at this time that they can virtually, so that they'll be ready when we do get back.
The one thing I'll add, in El Paso, the one thing I feel very firmly about is clarity precedes competence. And we were very clear at the beginning what we wanted EPISD at home, which is what we're calling our virtual learning environment. We were very clear about what we wanted to accomplish, what we wanted for the vision of the whole digital learning experience, providing devices to students, and providing the resources. We wanted to provide social and emotional support to students and families. And so we were very clear about the mission and the goals. We were very clear about what we wanted our teachers to do, including, 3 video conferences a week with their students, including how they were going to manage grades. We were very clear about how they were going to manage video office hours, PLCs virtually, how campuses would manage their virtual faculty meetings, and how administrators would support the PLC. So we were very clear at the beginning what we wanted this to look like. And so the systems that we had in place for communicating include, like the other two we're talking about, the principal supervisor meetings at the central office. We have our district-wide principals meetings. And so as soon as the decision was made for us to transition to virtual coaching, we went through those same protocols. We met, as a central office team, and we identified with the principal supervisors, this is the expectation. And then it went to the district-wide principals meeting. We shared with the principals who all would be involved with the coaching and that actually, when we were clear at the beginning about what we wanted, EPISD at home to look like, it became easier for teachers to say to their coaches, this is what I need help with, because the district has already established, I'm going to have to do video conferencing, I'm going to have to use these resources, this is what grading has to look like, this is how I'm going to engage with parents throughout this, because one of the expectations we had is that they had to have two-way communication because parents need to be able to ask questions. So all of those things facilitated them being able to say to the coach, this is what I need help with. We pulled in, the librarians to support the virtual coaching, and Engage to Learn has been phenomenal with helping the librarians. And that has had a twofold celebration for us. One is that the capacity of the librarians has increased because now they know how to support teachers in a virtual environment, but simultaneously, the relationship between librarians and teachers has gotten better because they have been supporting teachers directly with needs that they have right now as they're trying to, facilitate virtual learning with their students. You're muted, Cami.
Thank you, Tamika. I just want to give a shout out to all three of these districts because the communication systems that they have in place, it really was key, like you heard them say, to making that transition to virtual coaching. And really, none of them missed a beat. And even as Dan said with Abilene and Spring both, they kept the same schedules that they were using with the face-to-face coaching. So it was easy to make that transition because it was the same time the teacher had been meeting with the coach. In El Paso, because we were working on 38 new campuses, there wasn't already schedules for coaching there. So we did have to create new schedules for them and send those out. But I would say with all three districts, whether it was a teacher or the VPL team in El Paso or an instructional coach in Spring, if for some reason they had a conflict with the time, they communicated that in advance and worked with the Engage to Learn coach to reschedule it so that their coaching sessions could take place no matter what was going on with at-home learning during the time, or if the teacher was doing conferencing with students during that time. They all really embraced the coaching and wanted it to happen. And so they were reaching out to reschedule those sessions. The other shout out that I want to give to them with the systems that they had in place is all three districts had recognition systems with the face-to-face coaching already in place. And when they moved to virtual, that didn't just stop, like it continued because they already had the system in place, whether it be through eSuite, which awards them a digital badge for the best practice. You can see these tweets on here. One's from Abilene during a virtual coaching session, a teacher's still getting a badge. One of them is from a Spring ISD principal earning her LEAD badges and tweeting out about that. And then I wanted to share for El Paso, they've had so many coaching touches and their teachers have earned over 4,000 badges in that district and continue to earn them even with the virtual coaching. So all three districts were able to continue with the systems that they already had in place and make that transition. Y'all all really touched on this with the systems that you already had in place with the communication piece. Is there anything that y'all would want to add to if you had to change anything with your communication systems when you went to the virtual coaching? Okay, perfect. The only thing that I would add to this, and Tamika, you might share this in just a little bit, is I really liked how y'all gave, when y'all brought on those new campuses, y'all gave them the option to opt in to coaching. And I know that's going to be part of your celebration. But I think just that communication, because they were already overwhelmed with having to switch to virtual learning, and y'all just listening and knowing where their needs are and saying, hey, we have professionals that know how to support you with virtual learning, and they're here if that's something that y'all need for your campuses. I thought that was great how y'all communicated that to them. So y'all touched on this one a little bit as well, but what expectations did y'all set for virtual learning ahead of time? Tamika, I know you shared that with El Paso, for your coaches as well, and then also for the coachees.
I think for us, it was, we wanted to, because we weren't able to get every student in our community with a one-to-one device. I mean, we're just so far away from that has not been, that's been a very difficult part for us. And so we're doing some paper-based work and some virtual instruction. And so I think for us, one of the pieces that we communicated was that we wanted Engage to Learn to help our teachers explore all of the various things that might be out there that they've heard about and maybe haven't tried yet, because we did have the expectation of we wanted face-to-face instruction as much as possible with the groups of students that did have it. And so we've got, just the whole really getting into the blended learning. We jumped into blended learning a lot more than we had anticipated. And so we've got teachers that were able to get coaching on just various programs that are out there that are available to them. And that's what I think our greatest takeaway during this time is going to be that our teachers experimented with. It would be so much easier for them to be able to go back and implement a blended learning environment to a much greater degree than they were doing prior to this. And the coaching has really helped them explore that, I think. And that's one of the things that we communicated that we wanted to get out of this time. When you have your coach, they do know the various programs and platforms that you can communicate with students at home. And so we're hoping that, I do know a lot of them learned from the Engage to Learn coaches that we had.
Dan, I totally agree with you. I think that even though this has been such a challenging time, I think that teachers everywhere will come out of this with more tools in their tool belts and with skills that they didn't even realize they possessed. Our teachers are doing things that they didn't even know they could do. And it's been really amazing to see. I would encourage you to follow EPISD on Twitter and just see all of the amazing things that teachers have done. They have transformed their garages into classrooms, and when they facilitate their video conferences, they are literally having class with their students. It's amazing to see. But with the expectations that we set with the coaching, for one, our librarians, they have not been coaching teachers, and so they really needed to understand those coaching standards. And Engage to Learn has been great to help our librarians just understand what it means to coach. What are the coaching standards and how to facilitate that eGrow protocol when they're supporting teachers in this environment, and also how to support PLCs, our professional learning community. And because our teachers are still meeting on a weekly basis. And so we definitely wanted to shift the conversation to really focus on how they could best support and serve our teachers in this kind of environment. And so, using those coaching standards, using those best practices, how do you support, teachers in that professional learning community so that they can turn around and serve their students in the best way they can.
And I'll also echo that as well, that I know that once we come through our current situation, that definitely our teachers, our students are going to be in a way better place than we started. We launched Schoology this year as well, which is our learning management system. And we started out with just pushing, teachers to at least log into it and to access the curriculum. That's why our curriculum documents are housed. They're housed in what we call a Schoology group. But here very quickly, the plan for the upcoming school year was to start to push courses, Schoology courses. Well, that changed very quickly where we had to jump in with both feet with Schoology courses. And it has been eye-opening because I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails from teachers, principals in regards to questions around courses. And it's amazing that, you know, when you're forced to do something, it's amazing what happens. Back then, we were kind of just some people that were comfortable with technology would dip their toe into the waters of Schoology courses, but now we're all there, and it's amazing. I'm excited to see where we will land next year as we push forward. We've already begun with the blended learning campuses, utilizing both face-to-face and the online platform. And the integration of the virtual coaching was very seamless for them. But now just seeing how district-wide we've gone to this completely virtual learning environment, it's been a phenomenal experience. Tough, but definitely a good experience. One of the things that our expectation is that, you know, we're all using Schoology for students from K-12 to submit their assignments. We've put project-based learning units in place. Our first unit, I believe, focused on humanities. Our current unit, which is our second unit, we're looking at STEM and CTE, I believe. And then our final unit, I think the second unit is STEM, and our final unit, which will be coming up here shortly, will focus on PVA and CTE. So we tried to cover everything out there, integrate everything out there to make sure that no stone was left unturned. All teachers, the expectation around grading is that, hey, you know, you're not an algebra teacher, you're not a biology teacher, you know, you're a teacher. So, you know, the expectation is that, you know, all teachers support the grading and providing feedback through Schoology to our students as they go through completing these project-based learning, or the project-based learning activities that we have. So that's pretty much where we are. So again, the expectation is I'm using Schoology. Of course, the expectation around our coaches is that, again, as Cammie mentioned, that, you know, the schedule remains the same. It's just that instead of face-to-face, we're doing it virtually.
That's great. One thing I will say about all three of these districts is while they were all facing adversity, they all used that really to create opportunities for their staff. And as you'll notice on here, you can see they all had different, you know, problems that they were trying to solve. And so they did all three use a different set of professional learning standards for this virtual coaching. You know, you heard Dr. Brown say that they use the coach standards, you know, and that librarians were learning how to be coaches. So we were coaching those VPL teams with the Engage to Learn coach standards. And they were then turning around and using the E12 best practices for virtual learning with their teams. In Abilene, we had 2 sessions left in Abilene, and Abilene did choose to use the ETL best practices for virtual learning, so they could really help teachers make those connections between blended and virtual when they go back to school in the fall. And then with spring, there was 1 session left, and spring chose to continue to use the E12 Life Ready best practices and work with teachers on how do we implement those through our LMS of Schoology. And so I just wanted to quickly show you all the visual. These are the 7 high yield best practices for virtual learning. And during the spring semester in Abilene, we focused on assessment, informative feedback, the differentiation scaffolding, and then we also focused a lot on the communication and the collaboration piece, and then standards alignment. And these are the E2L Life Ready best practices. You can see that there's 12 of those. And so we just continued in spring to focus on the one that was relevant for the teacher and how they would implement that in Schoology. So just real quickly before we get to lessons learned and advice that you have for any districts that are thinking about moving to virtual coaching, is there anything that y'all want to share for the platform that you use for virtual coaching and how the transition went to using that platform?
We used, well, you can see here on this slide, all of the different platforms that we used. I think the lessons learned with the platforms, it was new to our teachers, and And I've had several emails from teachers saying, Dr. Brown, you guys have been very supportive. This has been great, but stop changing because we started using Zoom, and we kept getting the warnings from FBI. And so then we stopped using Zoom, and we were using Microsoft Teams, and we were using Schoology conference. And they're both great tools, very secure. However, they have limitations, as you know, most tools, have some limitations. You can't see all of your students. We had some buffering. There were some issues that we were experiencing, and we recently purchased WebEx, Cisco WebEx, and it's been great, but it's just having to transition so many times when it's already new to everyone. I mean, I was getting emails from parents, students, teachers, stop changing, we want to stay with Zoom. But all of these tools have been very useful and have allowed us to continue with video conferencing, with our virtual PLCs, with our coaching. All of these tools have enabled us to continue doing those things because we never changed the expectation. If you will recall, I mentioned we were very clear about, what we wanted to happen with EPISD at home, the experience we wanted our families to have, the experience we wanted students to have specifically. And so we were very clear about that. We just needed to get to the platform and at this point, I think we have a great one that would help us to realize the vision.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Brown, for sharing that. And I'll just add to that, and then we'll go on to the next question just for time's sake. But I will say, no matter what platform these districts were using for their conferencing, all of the coachees were able to transition to use Google Meets very seamlessly for the virtual coaching piece. So they were very agile. All right, so we're going to go ahead and skip down to lessons learned. And so if all three of y'all would share, what lessons did you learn when you moved from in-person to virtual coaching?
I'll start. I think of one really positive thing for us, and I was nervous about it at first. And Cammie and Shannon and I, we had conversations about the coaching being optional. With our regular rollout, coaching is not optional. So if you're a part of a cohort, you will be trained and you will experience coaching. And we've gotten really good data, like outcome data, as a result of the coaching. With this transition to coaching in a virtual environment, we actually started with the coaching being optional. And and we opened it up to all of our campuses. And so when we did that, we created our own bright spots because people began to be really excited and talk about their experiences with the first coaching session. And then everyone wanted to experience it. So it was like an organic process. And so the lesson learned for me was, Tamika, don't control it all. It's okay if campuses choose, because what happened for us is that they did choose, because you had those who were willing, that were excited about it, that then talked to their colleagues, and they were wanting to then jump in both feet. So it spread organically versus us saying everyone will be coached every time.
I think for us, for me, what was insightful is how easy it does transition to the virtual model, because if you think about it, it's really, so much of the in-person coaching is simply a one-on-one powerful conversation that's occurring, and you can continue that in a virtual environment and not lose very much, if at anything, of the effectiveness of it. And so I think that for me was one of the selling points of making sure that we did continue it, is because I was really thinking about how, this does work. This is not something that's simply because we're not in person. We're, over Zoom or over the I guess Google Meet is what we ended up going with, but there's just not a lot that is lost. And I also think that because there is so much to process in terms of the difficulties and nuances of this significant change because of the pandemic, I think that I think it was very healthy for our teachers to continue with the coaching because it did give them that opportunity to voice a lot of what they're facing, what they're having to adjust to, and how they're getting that done to try to still meet student needs and see academic growth during this time. So I think it was a very natural switch over that really continued to benefit our students. I mean, our teachers.
And just to add a little bit to that and to what's already been said, for me, lessons learned is just the value of the relationships that I've seen come about with our engaged to learn coaches, as well as our district-based coaches that are also stationed to support these campuses, and that our teachers and our coaches and our principals have been able to see the value that has come about as a result of these coaching sessions. These are not sessions that are just taking place just to be taking place. I mean, there's real growth that's taking place that's very evident. Again, I can appreciate the flexibility of Engage to Learn because, with anything, when we're starting something new, there's always rough spots. But I can appreciate when I reached out to Cammie and Amber and Taylor that they were so willing to work with us. And, there's a thing that we say as we teach that we have to meet our students where they are. And so I can appreciate Engage to Learn reaching our district and our campuses and teachers where they are to really provide support that was meaningful and that added value. And so again, the move from virtual or move from face to face to virtual was I mean, it happens very seamlessly without any pushback. So again, just going back to the importance of it, building that relationship and seeing that this person that's coming in is actually adding value to what I do.
Well, thank y'all so much for sharing those lessons learned because they help all of us continue to grow as we think about our next steps. And districts on here are thinking about their next steps with virtual coaching. So if you could share now, what advice would you give a district who is thinking about moving to virtual coaching, whether it be this summer or even next year as they prepare for micro closures potentially? What advice would you give them?
I would definitely say it's worth it. It's because there is a momentum behind the coaching that you don't want to sacrifice, especially if you've already started it. And to think that it's really, I mean, you could even if we had students in person, virtual coaching could still be a thing, if that makes sense, because the conversation is everything. And so I think it would. I think you just keep encouraging it because the variation of challenges that we face next year, they may change, and we may have new nuances that we have to try to work around and through. But the coaching process can really help with whatever the barriers or what may seem like limitations. All of that can be talked through the coaching process. And so I really don't think it's circumstantial or situational at this point. I think the coaching can help navigate and help a teacher try to think through and process next steps, whether it is virtual or blended or we are back, or if that even changes during the course of the year, which is, I think, what we're all trying to prepare for is that unknown of if we do have these smaller shutdowns in the coming year.
Yeah. Well, Dan, I just have to say, I love what you said about the coaching conversation being everything, because the eGrow model is focused on the conversation and it is evidence-based coaching. You can have that conversation whether it's face-to-face or virtual. So thank you so much for sharing that advice with districts.
And I would add, you know, think about those individuals that can support your at-home learning that don't necessarily have a direct contact or connection with students. Like, for instance, our librarians, they have been invaluable. They have a plethora of resources already, and now that they have the coaching value-added piece, they are just a force to be reckoned with. I mean, they really are adding value. Think about your assistant principals. You know, our assistant principals, like most assistant principals, handle books, butts, and buses. And, you know, now we have parents that are managing the classroom. We have parents that are, you know, the bus drivers if they're leaving the home for any reason, hopefully not. But the parents are really managing the classroom. And so that has given, you know, assistant principals a lot more time to support teachers. And so we are investing a lot of time in helping our principals understand how to support teachers in a virtual learning environment. So just thinking outside of the box with all of those individuals, and even at the central office level, we're identifying all of the individuals that that can support EPISD at home. We've set up a call center. We've trained different groups of professionals, and this is not their normal job, but we set up, we've trained different groups of professionals on specific competencies, like how to design, you know, units in Schoology, which is our learning management system. And so these individuals, they may not know anything else about Schoology, but they know how to do that. And so if you call that number, they can help a teacher get through that process. And so just thinking outside of the box with how you can use staff to support your efforts in a virtual learning environment.
I love that, Tamika. Great advice about how you can use all your staff to support virtual learning. Kevin, what about you? What advice?
So again, I know for our district with Blended, we, you know, our 4 or actually our 6 campuses that we had the Catalyst classroom visit, schools had an opportunity to look and actually see it in action and to see the results of just good, strong coaching. And so again, for us, just having those district, you know, campuses that are from within the district, not just YouTubing, you know, schools out there to see what blended learning, but to actually see it take place in our district with the community that we serve is one way of really trying to push the importance of virtual coaching. To also piggyback on what Dr. Brown said, you know, we set up a call center as well, and it was actually managed by my small team. And it was amazing because my small team of 3 it's grown to about, I think 14 people, not officially, but that have just stepped up to support our parents with just, you know, at first it was set up a call center just for parents and students to call in to, you know, get password portal resets, but it's now transitioned to we're full blown supporting Schoology, supporting, you know, how to access our PBO units, how to access, getting to the website. I mean, some of our calls are so intense that, you know, we're literally, you know, taking parents by the hand that aren't comfortable with technology and walking them through the process. I took a call from a parent that just literally, I mean, she broke down, and I was so glad I was there to spend, you know, that was 55 minutes well spent to help this parent who obviously parents are dealing with more than just trying to provide instruction for the children. They have other personal issues going on. So, you know, our call center was there to provide that support. And as I listened to you guys talk about the, you know, getting coaching support for librarians, I think that's a phenomenal idea, as well as our call center. Yeah, we're definitely going to need some support with handling those type of situations, because again, you know, one of the things that I communicated to our call center is that, look, you know, I don't want us to just take the call, reset the password, and hang up. You know, let's take time to make sure that the parent can get in, log in, they can find things, so that when you hang up, with that parent, the problems are solved. They don't have to call back. No one wants to leave the store to have to come back and get back in line. And so that's definitely something that they've taken to heart, and they've done a phenomenal job. But I do know that you could definitely use some coaching in that area. I have a new crew coming on next week. And I'm not losing my old crew, but I'm going to give them a break. But I'm just hoping that we can get them up to speed as far as with the heart. They have the knowledge, the head knowledge, but that heart, to make sure that heart is there when they're supporting our community is what we're definitely pushing towards.
Yeah, I love that support, Kevin, that y'all have given to every stakeholder in your district. So thank you for sharing that advice. And y'all, we are out of time, but I do want, if y'all will each take just 30 seconds and just quickly share out with this group, what was the most rewarding, surprising, or thing about transition to virtual coaching? Dan, if you'll just start us off, and we'll start with Abilene and go to El Paso and then Spring.
Sure. I think the most surprising thing was I didn't have resistance from the teachers. That I think they recognized quickly that it was going to be the same thing that they had done. They just wouldn't be face to face with the coach, that it was just going to be virtual. And so, yeah, with all the various things that are difficult in the teacher's world right now, this isn't something that rose to our teachers being frustrated or upset that they had to do. I think they welcomed it and embraced it, and are continuing the learning process even from home.
Great, thank you.
So for me, one of the surprising things is when the email went out, no one inboxed me with pushback. And I was very, and I'll just share this with y'all. I had several coaches and teachers actually reach out to me to say, hey, what's the deal on our coaching? Are we going to continue that? And so that was definitely a surprise. No, I'm not going to say it wasn't a surprise. I was excited about that. And I wasn't surprised about that because I see the work that y'all have been doing with our teachers. And so that's the surprise for us.
Thanks, Kevin.
And I echo what they have shared. I mean, it has been absolutely rewarding and amazing to see how teachers have responded during this pandemic. I mean, there is no, test score hanging over their heads. There is no star. There is no EOC. But our teachers have absolutely responded, and they've responded in a big way. And they are doing everything that they can to do what's best for kids and families. Our teachers are calling. Every kid in our district gets a call every 2 weeks. We call it our student check-in process. And we have been able to account for all but 273 students in EPISD because of our teachers. Elementary teachers call their homeroom students. At the middle school, the advisory teachers call students. Every student is connected to an advisory, and at the high school, second period teachers. And so our teachers have just been the reason we've been successful. And it's so rewarding. When I grow up, I'm still going to be a teacher. That's my closing statement. It's been amazing.
Well, I love that, Tamika, and just thank you, Dr. Dukes and Dr. Brown and Kevin, for sharing your insights with us today. I know that I've learned so much from y'all and have some great quotes that y'all have shared. So we really appreciate that. And then for all of our participants, there are a few reflection questions on your idea pad if you want to jot down some things that you heard throughout this interview before we go to the closing session at 3:30. So once again, thank everyone for their time and for being on here today. We really appreciate it.